Welcome back to another episode of the Whole Life Vitality Podcast. Today, I am here with the amazing author, Jillian Reilly. Jillian
Yeah.
Reilly, girl, I am so excited to talk to you today because I just devoured your book. I think amongst my busy schedule, devoured it all in about 2 days and just have a couple pages of notes here that I'm really excited to talk to our listeners about today. But,
Yay.
but let's start with who is Jillian? I
Yeah,
know it's a
good
big one.
question. I was going to say, wow, you're just going straight for it,
We're
aren't
going
you?
straight forward. We want
We're,
people to
we're,
know who they get to hear from.
yeah, thank you. So Jillian is, I'm from the States. As you know, I'm currently living in South Africa because I actually left the States at a really young age. A lot of my story starts when I was graduating from college and I was sort of on track to be this, I call it sort of on the good girl track. I was like
Yeah.
a good student, went to a good school, was supposed to get a good job. And there was something that was kind of bubbling up in me that was like, I want a bigger life and I want to be a part of something bigger. I want to kind of have something that feels like a meaningful contribution to the world.
Yeah.
And at the same time, South Africa was going through this transition, feels like a lifetime ago. A lot of your listeners won't even be born then, but it was in 1994. I'm slightly embarrassed to say that
It
they
was a
had
good
their
time.
first it was, thank you. I think so. Had their first democratic elections. And I was like, I want to be there. I'm going to go
Yeah.
there. So, at an early age, I listened to this inner voice that was, running very contrary to what my conventional story was telling me to do. And, lots of uncomfortable conversations around the kitchen table with my parents, kind of going, who is this? Where did she
Yeah.
come from? And, I talk about it in the book, which is, sometimes when other people don't know you is when you're getting to know yourself. It's
Mm-hmm.
awkward and you feel like you don't have words for it and you can't kind of make a pitch for it. And you're just like, I just remember kind of being like, "Ugh, I don't know. I just know I want to go." And so I set off on my own path at a really early age, and it really opened up my life and my world and my perspective. And we'll talk about it more, I'm sure. But then I started to do work around social change, around personal change. And that just started this lifetime journey of sort of my own change and
Yeah.
then being present with other people as they were navigating change themselves.
That is so cool. Actually, one of the quotes that I have here that I hope you don't mind
Mhm.
if I share was from your book and about this same thing because you said, I quickly learned that when no one else seems to know you, you're getting to know yourself, which you said. But then also,
Mm.
I know how lonely it can feel when the people who love you see you as a stranger. I also know sometimes you've got to become a stranger to others to get to know yourself. And that hit me hard because I was also raised in an environment that I was a little bit of the black sheep and
Mm.
very different than how my family was. And it kind of felt like I wasn't seen or like I was there, but I'm like, did you even really know me? And so to see that, I was like,
Mm.
yeah, like that's where growth comes from.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was the first person in my family with a passport.
Wow.
I was weird. I mean, we still, now that we've kind of, I've got two sisters who I love deeply, and now that we've kind of come back around, we can kind of laugh about it. But
Right?
yeah, what was very interesting for me was that they also recall that time of being like, yeah, we were all kind of like, what is Jill doing? And so if you can, and you can make it through those moments, I mean, we
Yeah,
all can. We kind
sure.
of fear that we can, but we actually can. And one of the things I talk about in the book is raising your discomfort tolerance and learning to distinguish discomfort from danger,
Mm,
that this doesn't feel good but I'm still safe, learning to work out that approval is desired but not necessary,
yep.
so we all love it but it actually isn't the barrier or the requirement for action that we make it out to be in our heads.
Right.
I look back on that now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I learned that early. People and I work with people who spend their whole lives and at 50 they're still going, am I allowed? They're still
Right.
in that somebody else's story. So yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's important.
So this book that you wrote is called The 10 Permissions, which you've
Mhm.
mentioned a couple times now, but it's so interesting because when I first read the title, I thought The 10 Permissions because I'm kind of a rebel, like we've discussed
Mhm.
already. And so I'm like, who has to give me permission? I'm going to
Mhm.
do whatever I
Mhm.
want, but the 10
Yeah.
permissions, like you have to give yourself permission as an adult because nobody else is going to come along and do it. What inspired you to write the 10 permissions? And what does giving yourself permission mean to you?
So part of my early experience when I came here as a very young woman and got sort of thrown into this world of international aid and international development and kind of going into people's lives into situations where we had all sorts of money and all sorts of facts and all sorts of know-how and this and that. And I reached this point where I was like, I can give people all sorts of things, but I can't give them permission.
Yeah.
So I started to realize that in the process of trying to grow and change, it's you versus you. You are your own green light. I can stand here and say, Lauren, come on, you're amazing. It's great. You are the only one who is going to green light your own action.
Yep.
And so, the frustration, if you will, and in some cases, like the humbling for me at an early age of being like, okay, right. So I can't go out and just be like, let's go, taught me this idea of your own relationship with yourself and your own sort of self-limiting and the implicit rules and the implicit
Hmm.
stories that shape your understanding of who you think you're allowed to be. So in many ways I've been kind of playing with this theme throughout my whole life and my whole career.
Yeah.
And then as we moved into this period that we're in now, where I think we're all trying to manage so much change, we're all trying to make sense of our place in a changing world,
Yep.
like who we're supposed to be by when and how. This theme for me feels really important because, as I say in the book, it's not that I think that people sit around and expect somebody to come and give them permission. It's just that they're not used to giving it to themselves.
Right.
They'll hesitate, they'll wait, they'll hold on to ideas or plans or things they want to do for too long. They get stuck in action. So, this idea of more routinely and explicitly green lighting some of your own action in response to changes that you want to make or have to make,
Yeah.
for me, feels super relevant right now.
Yeah. My brother, he coined this phrase. I'm pretty sure he's the one who coined it, but I've used it so many times here and other places. He says, I do what I want. I don't do what I don't want. And sometimes I try to want better things.
Oh, I love that.
I know. I love
Yeah.
it.
And why is that, that has this degree of kind of, ooh, like sass to it or edge
Yeah.
to it. And yet it's so
Yeah.
obvious. Like, why, of course.
Why
And yet,
wouldn't you?
why wouldn't you? And yet we all know we don't.
Hmm.
It's why my first permission is be willful to connect to
Yes.
want, because from a very early age, you learn to outsource your want, to want what everybody thinks, tells you should want, or to
Hmm.
want what you think other people want you to want.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, his mantra is like, put it on a bumper sticker and let's all drive around with it. It's,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But from a young age, and I think Carol Dweck, she wrote the book Mindset, and she talks about this a little bit in her book about how boys were kind of expected to take risks and to live a little wilder, and girls were expected to play it safe. And within that playing safe, especially for women, I think that we've spent so much time asking or waiting for other people to approve what is okay. Because we're like, I'm just going to sit here and fold my hands and act like a lady until you say this is all right for me to speak up or for me to take action or whatever. So once we can start stepping into that role of being our own authority and proceeding when we feel so inclined to proceed, then the sky's the limit.
yeah, I mean, I'm actually giving a talk on just that tomorrow because
Oh,
Saturday is Women's Day here in South Africa. And so I'm actually doing a talk with a bunch of MBA students around exactly that. And, one of the things I talk about is the acceptance economy.
mm,
Whereas women, as you say, we're always seeking acceptance. We're always sort of trading on approval and we trade compliance for acceptance and recognition.
yep,
And, we can be high achievers and hard workers and the absolute engine of an organization. But in terms of actual power and authority, it's always elusive because you'll never step into the spaces of want, of I can, of
yep,
I'm allowed, of, and of accepting the fact that there might be somebody else in the room who says, like, you're okay. You can handle disagreement. You can handle somebody disapproving of you. The fact that it hinges so much on other people's approval means that we operate within this incredibly precarious space where we're always kind of, am I okay? You know, stepping into a room, stepping into a conversation, stepping into a role, you're like always calibrating how to make yourself acceptable. And when you're always doing that, there's no way that you can really fully exercise your power, your authority, make your best contribution. You can't do it.
Yep. Well, and I know for women, a lot of the time we are so cautious of other women in that if
Mm.
I step on someone's toes, if I behave a certain way, will they think that I'm better than them? You know, we're always trying to play that balance of, oh, I'm good, but you're good. So if we stay equal, it's like taking someone's toy. If we step into a room and we actually arrive with our power, and we say, no, it's okay, here I am, you're not taking anything from anyone else. Once you embrace that there is no scarcity, that you're not taking someone's toy to show up this way, that there's room for this power, for this bigness and personality to come from anyone. Because, like you said, some people don't want it.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that, you know, for my generation, which I would say was probably the first generation of women to be allowed to the
Hmm.
workplace with a degree of upward mobility, and there was an implicit understanding and actually also an explicit understanding. There's only room for a few of you, right?
Yeah.
Understand that. And so, for as long as only a few of you are permitted into the conversation, into the room, of course,
Yeah.
there's scarcity. Of course, you know, once I'm there, I feel insecure because there isn't room for both of us.
Mm.
So I think reprogramming that idea that it's a zero sum game, that it's me versus you, because that's the way we've been programmed. That's what we've
Right.
been led to feel and led to believe, because in fact it was true and to
Hmm.
some extent still is. So I think that's where kind of working together far more intentionally saying, okay, we got to do this together because it
Hmm.
isn't me versus you, it's all of us.
Okay, so
Hmm.
you describe shedding the persona of the good girl and
Mm.
unraveling your identity. What was the most painful part of that unraveling, and why was it so liberating?
I would say that unraveling is still happening. I
Yeah,
think it's a lifetime unraveling for all of us because we enter into new seasons and chapters. This book is part of that unraveling.
yeah.
I mean, let me be really honest. It took me a long time to write this book because I was stepping into my own authority.
Mm.
I have also been brought up to believe that approval is required for me to continue to exist in a public space. So I think this routine negotiation with self of it's okay, you're allowed to back yourself, you're allowed to be visible, you're
Mhm.
allowed to put something into the world and believe in your generative power. I'm still doing that. Every time that you move into more space, you do that, right? Every moment, and I think it's true for everybody. The minute that you move into that next level, that next thing, that new space where you feel a little bit unsteady, you have to kind of remind yourself that actually you've spent your whole life developing the capability to do just this.
Yep.
So take it one day at a time, breathe deeply, keep going, and small little steps that keep the forward momentum going. You know, I try and kind of always tell myself that even if it's just one thing I do in a day where I force myself into that space that I know feels uncomfortable, send the email, follow up on the conversation.
Yeah.
I did it. Okay, I'm safe. I'm still okay. It's reprogramming my own sense of safety. And that comes through small, intentional steps.
Constantly showing yourself over and over again that you can do things that are hard or uncomfortable and still be okay.
That's right. And
Mm.
it literally is, you know, you have to act your way through that fear. And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck in the kind of rumination and inaction. The fear sucks energy out of you, it sucks belief out of you.
Yeah.
It's so easy to allow it to drain you of the ability to move forward. And the only way through it is one little action at a time.
Yep.
It can be like the tiniest thing. You then go, I use a lot of physical or, you know, almost like geographic metaphors and images in my head. And I really see it as like kind of moving through a space that is wild. Like how you move through that, running, you're looking around, you're finding your way, you're like, okay, I'm good. You're finding your way. And it can feel like you're unsafe, but actually, it's like, you're okay. You're okay. One little step at a time.
Well, and it's such a good point because when you think about it like that, you're on a path or you're in the forest or whatever, and you're walking through. If you start going a direction and you wind up somewhere you don't want to be, you just redirect. You don't sit down on the ground and throw a fit and say, I wish I'd never come. You redirect.
No,
Another one of
right.
my favorite quotes is, I reserve the right to change my mind.
Yes.
Make a decision, get going, do something, recognize that at any point along the way, you can change your mind. You can go a different direction. You can turn around. You can pivot.
Well, I think it's kind of messing with the mental model of adulting and adulthood that a lot of us are still imprinted with, which was very much built out around knowing who you were going to be and what you were going to do. And then you got onto that path, and boy, you stuck on it, right?
Yep.
Because we were change averse. And the reality was there were rewards, following the path. You were rewarded for longevity and loyalty and being there for a long time, which you aren't anymore, right? It's not the same world. So, a lot of us believe that we should have this long-term clarity and stick to it, or else we are, flighty, or we're all over the place, or all these adjectives that we think are signs of bad character. And
Yeah.
actually, in a really disruptive world where you don't have a long line of sight, where most of the people I know don't know what next year looks like, much less 5 years from now. So I have to change my mind. It would be stupid not to in the face of new information. And to stop seeing that as a character flaw and start seeing that as an inherent part of finding your way through life in a very volatile world, I think is really critical.
I completely agree. Again, just to bring it back to Carol Dweck, I love that book. I think it's so
It
good.
is.
But she talks
I would,
about fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and that fixed mindset does not change its mind, and it gets
no.
stuck in that growth pattern. Like if you decide on something and you never change, then you never get to grow. But that growth mindset, sky's the limit. No ending.
I would put permission very much as a centerpiece of a growth mindset,
100%.
if that's a framing that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
That is the routine authorizing of yourself to make different choices, to learn new things, to adapt to different circumstances, and to not see that as a sign of weakness or as a sign that you're somehow off track, but as a sign that you are adapting and evolving in response to a changing world. And, what's amazing is that she wrote that book. I forget when it was published. It was quite a while ago now.
A long
And
time ago.
it's never been more relevant. I don't know how anybody couldn't now function with a growth mindset.
But if she had that extra dialogue of permission to put in between those two things, I think that would have helped people connect those dots too. So, can you walk us through one or two of the 10 permissions that had the biggest impact on your healing, or that you maybe if you had to like pick one or two?
It is. And I tend to go back to the same children, I think, because I'm just so, for me, the first two are sort of foundational.
Okay.
So that whole I do what I want, I don't do what I don't want. Like for me, that first permission of be willful, like we could spend a very long time there.
Yep.
The vast majority of people that I know squashed their will and their want so long ago
Yeah.
because they were, again, good little boys and girls who didn't ask for much or did exactly what they were told. It worked in a society where we were pliant. We are
Yeah.
not anymore. And so we're also bombarded with options and choices. And so if you are not listening into your want and willing to articulate it and act on it, you're going to be lost.
Yeah.
So I think more than ever for me, that's important. And I think, I always talk about yes and no being your like lightsabers that you're finding your way through that woody forest with, of like your brother. Yes, I want that. No, I don't want that. Like it's super into that. That's life changing, really. But when people start operating from that place, a lot of stuff changes, because then we go to the second one, which is go astray, which is the choice to do things that, take you out of step with convention, that take you out
Mhm.
of step with whatever path you're on. And, for me, this is central to the premise of the book as well, which is that we're outside now of a world where this linear life path is what good looks like, where you
Yeah.
just seamlessly move from one thing to another. Like, I don't know anybody whose lives look like that right now. But I do know a lot of people who feel like maybe there's something wrong because they
Hmm.
don't have that life. That, like, oh my gosh, I'm, not progressing in the way that my mom and dad did, or that I kind of half expected to
Yeah.
take a lateral move or do something in order to grow. And my point in the book is that we're talking about building adaptive life paths right now. And so you've got to embed change into your mindset, welcome it, make it, don't wait for it to happen to you. So those two for me are like, little kind of fraternal twins that are part of the same mindset where I'm not just head down doing what other people want me to do and doing that for the rest of my life.
Mm.
And that in and of itself is huge.
Yes, I completely agree. Have you ever read the book The Third Door? Are you familiar with that
Mm-mm.
one? It's basically the same concept of getting off the beaten path because we're all in line for this first door that says we're going to have success. The first door is generally for like the elite, right? They get first pick at the door. And there's some people who are
Mm.
just kind of predisposed, predestined to go certain places based on, familiar connection or whatever. And then there's a second door when we're all like, okay, everyone else now get in line here and you'll all get to wait
Right.
your turn and maybe you'll get a chance to go through the door. But where the real success comes is those people who are willing to step out of line
Mm.
and walk over here to this third door and
Right.
walk through and see what's there.
Right.
I think that's what you're saying with this game changing, get out of line, do something different, do what inspires you as the unique human being that you are.
Right. And I think the thing was that was always kind of viewed as a privilege. One of the things that I find the saddest is that we've been conditioned to believe that we're lucky to have a job, we're lucky to collect a paycheck, and that sort of should be the limit of what we long for in life. Put your security at risk by wanting more. There's a greediness to it, there's an indulgence to it. And one of the turning points for me in writing this book was that my father passed away while I
Mm,
was sort of on draft number two, lived his whole life, wearing the suit and going to the job. And, at the end of his life, he was very depressed. And it was really hard for me to deal with that and to make sense of that and to see him filled with such sadness and regret because he did everything he was supposed to do. And as I say, only what he was allowed to do. And I sat there and, I was just like, oh my gosh, I mean, in all the cliches, what's it all about?
right.
What do you take with you? But when you're sitting next to your parent,
Yeah.
it's very real. And so, throughout the book, I've tried to sort of touch on both that reality that, yeah, you only get this one wild life. So what the heck are you doing with it? We are in this time where a lot of those, stories that shaped our belief that we were only allowed to be certain things and only allowed to do certain things, they've unraveled. They're not worth it anymore.
Yep.
Can we
Yeah.
just let it go and
Yeah.
stop playing by dusty rules that frankly, don't serve us? They don't reward
Yep.
us. So why would we do it?
Yep. Let's just do it.
Yeah,
Let's just go for it.
right.
Okay, so I want to dive a little bit into just an area that I absolutely love because you talked a little bit about listening to your body. And
Mm,
you said the body's always been treated as a hotbed of irrational
mhm,
feelings and risky longings that led you astray from your safe and secure path, a distraction from or a threat to success. And
mm,
I just felt that so deeply because I hear that from a lot of my clients when they say, I can't trust my body. My body wants
mm.
this or my body wants that, or it tells me this is what I want. A big part of what I do is listen to the body because
Yeah.
your body tells you exactly what it needs. It was designed to ask for food when it's hungry, to ask for drink when it's thirsty, to ask for sleep when it needs to rest. But beyond that, we have our gut intuition. And you talk a little bit about your gut and your heart and your head. And I would love for you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Ever here. My one AirPod just died. Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, this is such an important thing for me too. I think our brains are overloaded right now and tired. We're heaping so much on sort of rational cognition to try and make sense of a world that increasingly just doesn't make sense to us.
Right.
We can't figure out true from false or right from wrong. And a lot of the places that we look to tell us that in the past just aren't there to offer that. So the pressure on the individual to know what's right for them is, and the opportunity for the individual to decide what's right for them has never been greater. And for me, that's where your body is your guide, as you've just said beautifully. The fact that, we have been led to feel and we've been conditioned up until this point to see this, you know, as our guide, that it was rational, it was cognitive, and in the absence of rational thought and rational decision making, we didn't act.
Right.
We didn't trust it. We didn't listen to it.
Telling us something else.
Even when our gut is telling us something, it's
Mhm.
not a reliable partner in our wayfinding. And I think, the nature of the world today is asking us to say, listen to that, listen in. It knows better, it knows best. And one of the things that's really important with me, Lauren, is working with younger people around this. Because for me, it's one of the ways that education has particularly never served us because it never recognizes that form of intelligence. I mean, you don't talk about it in school, you don't deal with it. And I think they will have to more
Yeah.
and more as the value and the currency of rational cognition is less and less because it's being replicated by machines. The value and currency of human intelligence, of instinct and intuition, I think is going to get ever greater. And when you say to a teen, you have a voice inside here, listen
Yeah.
to it, that isn't earned. It doesn't come with age. You're born with it. And in fact, children listen to it beautifully.
We condition it out of our children. They come with it inherently, and then we say, no, don't listen to that. Do what I say and look at the logic reason.
Absolutely. So I think for me, this general theme of sort of becoming your own best guide in a
Mhm.
world where you can just be frozen and paralyzed looking around for somebody to tell you what to do is absolutely critical. And as I said, I actually weirdly think it's one of the interesting possibilities that's being created by AI, which is maybe some of this intelligence will actually be honored and recognized and rewarded in a way that it wasn't in the past. Maybe we will start to listen to it because I think we need it more than ever.
Oftentimes, people think that if they do all the right things, they'll never feel bad again. Will life always be easy? No. Will you always feel happy? No. Will everything go your way? No. It won't. And I think a lot of what people take away from personal development books in general is this, okay, we'll do all these things and everything will be perfect. But that's not real life. And so even with this trusting your gut and moving forward with things, you're going to run into things in your path that you maybe wish weren't there. But that doesn't mean you picked the wrong thing.
No. We've taken friction out of our lives. We optimize for ease all the time. We still treat it as, again, what good looks like. We
Mhm.
have the idea, and social media reinforces it, of people who look like they're moving through everything seamlessly, whether it's having a baby or going to college or starting a new job. Everything looks seamless. And it's
Yep.
like, as you say, one, it's not realistic. But I don't even think it's desirable
Mm.
because every single one of us knows that it's in those moments when, I believe I use the phrase in the book, that you feel kind of acutely alive. And again, that's a physical response. And
Yep.
I want people to be aware of when their body last spoke to them in a way of going, hey, I'm sweating, I've got goosebumps, my heart is racing, the hairs on the back of my neck are up, I'm exhausted, I'm this or that. That is your body going, awesome. This is hard. I don't necessarily get it, but I'm alive and I'm learning and I'm finding my way. And I think so many people just completely edge those things out of their lives, and then to the point that when they do feel them, they regard them as this, a problem and an aberration that needs to
Yep.
be fixed. I
Yeah,
think
isn't it amazing to find yourself capable and able of doing the hard things? Because even just something as simple as lifting something heavy, that's hard. But writing your book, that was hard. There are lots of things out there that are hard, but you grow through them. I mean, as a personal trainer, that's what I do all day long. I'm like, pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. Is it heavy? No, let's get a heavier one. That's what we do because growth happens through those hard things. And if we're never putting ourselves in situations where things are a little uncomfortable, how are we going to get stronger? Where does that character actually come from?
It doesn't. And I think what I hear a lot of right now, especially from younger people, is like, oh, life is hard. Or I'm tired of being asked to be resilient. There, for me, is a very big difference between enduring things that are happening to you and
Yes.
absorbing them ever more versus choosing things that you
Mhm.
want to do that you know are going to take you, as you say, into that space of discomfort. And that's what
Mhm.
I think is important. It's not opening up your phone and reading yet another catastrophe has happened and going, oh, life is hard. And it's, I am going to choose to do something. And I talk about it in the book. That's like an I can moment. And
Mhm.
I did it moment. And I didn't know I could do it moment where you're,
Yep.
oh, wow, okay. Because then when you go out into that world that is admittedly throwing a lot at us, you find that center again in which you go, all right, I've got maybe a little more capability than I thought I did.
As a mom, I bring things back around to raising kids a lot because I've raised kids more recently than I was a child myself. But you teach a kid how to ride a bike or to walk or to do any one of those things that are new and difficult. And I think a lot of us have learned how to ride a bike at some point. And the first time you get on the bike, it's uncomfortable. And you know you want to do it because it's going to be fun and you see other people, but you see other people enjoying that whole process. So you think maybe I want to do that too. And you fall and
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable and you don't like it. But then you get up and you do it again and you do it again until all of a sudden you have that moment of victory as you're riding on your own. And that is just something I don't even think you could describe. That feeling is deep within you and you're like, "Wow, I did this thing." And you carry that with you to the next hard thing.
I don't,
They're about to be 13 and 16.
yeah, so it's really interesting. So I've got two boys who are 14 and 17. I feel like there's an interesting thing that happens in this teen years where, those early days, as you describe, of just physical exploration moments of all of that moving into newness as a regular part of your life. And then the world and culture starts to shape you into this, okay, life is serious now. What are you going to be?
Yeah.
What are you going to study at school? Are you going to college?
Yep.
You know, and there's this sort of corporate factory mentality of, okay, you're done now. It's time to start getting ready for work
Yeah.
sets in. And you suddenly have to be really intentional about integrating those things into your life because it's super easy now to slip into your head all the time, to slip into, oh, I don't need to do that. It's all about grades. It's all about this. So, I talk about it in the book of this like narrowing and flattening out. I think we really, as parents, as people, we have to be aware that this needs to be a part of our lives. We need to keep that exploratory spirit alive in us in whatever way makes sense for us.
Well, I love that you said that because one of the things I wanted to talk about was you mentioned it's time to reframe your relationship to creativity, to treat
Mm.
the act of creating not as the work of a few talented elites, but as a fundamental human capability. And I think that's what it boils down to because we see these children who are thriving in creativity in elementary school. And studies have shown that it's actually around fourth grade where they start to criticize themselves and others. And then they back up and they get less and less secure about putting that creativity out there because they're afraid of not doing it well or judgment or whatever. So then by
Right.
the time they're in high school and working their way through, well, what's next? They're terrified of making mistakes. Where did that creativity go? Where did that, like, let's just throw this out there and see what happens?
I want to be cautiously optimistic that the AI revolution might cause us to look afresh at this,
Yeah.
our core human capability to create our
Hmm.
value add work to what we are creating, to the problems that we're solving.
Right.
And as I said in the book, I think it is about sort of decoupling this idea of yourself as artist from yourself as problem solver. The point that I made about using the DJ as your inspiration. You don't have to create something brand new. You can remix and reposition something. Start playing around with stuff that's already there. Playlists and all this kind of stuff where it was
Yep.
like little things again that remind you that it's not about sitting down with a blank slate and thinking you've got to create something brilliant. It's about, using what's available to you to either solve a problem or meet a need or
Yep.
make a contribution.
I think you're right. Even just looking at what AI is producing, you can really tell the difference in what is authentic in even a paper that is written out versus something that AI creates. And you're like, it just feels like it's lacking that human touch.
Yeah.
Makes a big
And
difference.
it's an incredible tool,
Yeah.
as a solopreneur,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call ourselves, find myself going, oh my gosh, I created my own website. I
Yeah.
didn't do that before. And I came, what you described, that feeling of like, oh.
The accomplishment. Yes.
So I think we should not discount the ways that it might liberate some of our own sense of creative capability as
Oh,
well.
yes. Well, I will say AI is very good at being super validating. So that's
Oh, yeah.
nice. You put something in there and you're like, what do you think about this that I created? And it's like, oh, wow, you're so great. You're doing such a good job. And you're like, well, thank you very much.
So clever. I was teasing my teenage sons of like, ChatGPT is so much nicer to me than you are. I'm an absolute genius. I don't know what's wrong with you guys. Oh,
Absolutely. Oh my
man.
goodness. I love that. It's so accurate, though. And I think that's also one of the ways that we need to be cautious with it because we don't necessarily need everything validated, but that's a different story for a different day. One more thing I really wanted to talk about was you mentioned discontentment and striving. And I wanted to quote you here saying, striving is the source of much mystery and grinding dissatisfaction because its starting point is discontentment with the present tense a never enoughness, a what about moreness. The striving worldview always puts the desired thing off in the distance. And it is this delayed happiness agreement that somehow we've put into place saying, well, I'll be happy when, or I'm miserable now, but it's fine because I'll be okay once I get this thing. But we're not.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the most fundamental things that we have a very hard time as, you know, whatever adjective you want to use, ambitious, aspirational. What's the alternative? And I talk about that, it's like, I get it, I do it too in terms of a book or this or a program I'm going to launch. I talk about the difference between sort of striving and savoring. And for me, I completely understand that we might be driven to create and driven to, and not just to achieve or to acquire. And I do think those are different things, right? I do
Yes.
think the motivation and the fundamental starting point, if I want to make something and I want to put it out there, is quite different from, I want to hit my sales target.
Right.
I think it's the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic. The other is an intrinsic desire. And I think a lot of this finding your way is tapping into those intrinsic desires. And then remembering to savor it because, I totally am the same in terms of just the breathlessness
Mm.
of creation, where it's like, okay, that's fine. The book's done now. Now what?
But how much joy did you get out of the process of writing your book? You know?
So that
Yeah.
was for me the joy.
Yeah.
I was so happy doing that. My husband started to be like, he'd come back into where I was, and he'd be like, "You're here again. Are you okay?" Yeah. It
Get
was
that
like,
creativity high though. You get in that flow and it just feels so good.
oh, I
Uh,
loved it. To
Yeah.
be honest, I was a little sad when it
Yeah.
was over.
You can write another one.
So what I'm trying to savor now is moments like this.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sound but like this book it hasn't even been published yet, and it's already introducing me to people and allowing me to have conversations that I never would have had before. And I'm
Wow.
absolutely loving it. I never would have met you. We never. connected. I think that's the other thing that's really important for us all to remember is that when we put something out into the world that is a reflection of our desire, it's an incredible connector. Draws people to us who have similar desires or interests.
Yep.
Your podcast is doing just that. And I'd love for people to tap more into that. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And maybe even it won't succeed based on whatever external metric I might have in my head. But oh my gosh, what a ride I'm going to have with
Yeah.
this.
Well, and when we look at the joy in the journey, because that's what it's really all about, right? Then whatever comes at the end is just a happy thing to add on to all the joy you've already received.
I talk a lot in the book about success stories, and obviously it's a little bit of a refrain around reframing what it looks and feels like. Success is always just out of your reach.
Right.
I think the more, and it's already happening, but I think the more that people start to frame success in terms of their lived experience, in terms of the quality of the experiences they're having, the relationships that are a part of that, recognizing that's the stuff.
Mhm.
There's more. This book is not going to do anything more for me than to introduce me to people and to allow me to have some small contribution in people's lives. And that's where I have to find joy, not in whether it was an Amazon bestseller, because I guarantee you that feeling is going to come and go literally overnight. But
Yep.
this is this kind of juicy, life-giving feeling that will stick with me.
Yeah. Oh, I hope that everyone hears this podcast because that is just such a wonderful takeaway. I love that so much. So, for our listeners that are just beginning their journey of self-reclamation, what permission are you hoping they'll give themselves today?
I think, it isn't one of the 10, but I think to make one small step to, first of all, you get a workbook with the book. You didn't get that because you were reading
Oh,
a
no, I
book.
already pre-ordered mine.
Thank you. You'll get a getting started workbook, which was really important for me to include as part of the initial offer because what I wanted people to do was immediately ground themselves in small steps. And what I talk about is sort of days, not years,
Hmm.
to get down into the kind
Yeah.
of weed of their everyday choices and to not think that this is about blowing up your life, making a bunch of high risk decisions.
Yep.
I want people to show up to a Saturday and go, what do I want to do today? To listen to that, to act on that, to say that to somebody else, even when they don't know how they're going to react. And I know there'll be people who will roll their eyes at that and say, oh, okay, whatever.
Maybe they don't know what they want.
Part of the book is pointing you out into the world, pointing you into new experiences, pointing you into acting your way into a new understanding of what's possible in your life. And I also want to add, kind of pointing you to community. So I
Yeah.
am creating a 10 Permissions community because I just think we can't do this alone. There are so many people who feel like they're the only one in the world who is trying to
Yep.
decide if they should go to college, trying to decide if they should start that business that they've been thinking about, afraid of being laid off. There's so many people who are like thinking that they've got to figure it all out on their own. And I think socializing this conversation around the choices we allow ourselves to make in a very disruptive world is really important to me. I want to invite people not only on an individual journey, but into a shared one, because I just think the model of us doing this all on our own, it's ridiculous. It's impossible.
I completely agree. And I think a lot of what people are lacking these days is that community. I know a lot of people that are looking for that, just people to come together with a shared idea or a shared goal in the end just makes a really big difference. How can people connect with you? And where can they get your book? And when is it available?
It is available from the 16th. Well, it's published on the 16th of September.
Okay,
Officially, it is currently, as you already know, available for pre-order on Amazon.
that's right. Get
I
yours
want
while you
to
can. Don't want it to sell
please,
out.
please also, it cues the wonderful algorithm at Amazon that, oh, people like this. Excellent.
Good.
Maybe others might like it too. So encouraging people to pre-order and to get their copy once it'll be in bookstores from the 16th. My website sort of describes both obviously the book, it has a blurb about the community, and I've created an AI, helped me create a little AI assistant for the book
Well, that's
because
impressive.
can you believe it? This old chick did this at this point in her life, thinking she could. I see so much of how people, and particularly younger people, who for me are a key audience for this book, are using AI,
Yeah.
the soundboard, as a reflective tool. And I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. It provides a safe environment for people to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I think that, as another tool, another space for people to explore, that felt like an interesting thing to put out there. So it's all on the website. And, I also want to invite people to reach out to me. As I said just a little while ago, that for me is the stuff of this journey for me, is hearing
Hmm.
how this is affecting people, what people are, taking from this. So yeah, don't be shy.
All right. So they can find you on your website, which we'll link down
Yeah.
below, and on your social platforms, and we'll link Amazon where they can get your book. It's fantastic. Highly recommend. And I will say, as I was reading it, especially as a mom of teenagers, I thought, I really want my kids to read this. And so I love that you said that a target audience would be that younger generation, because I completely agree. I want my 16-year-old daughter to be reading this so that she's prepared for what's coming.
Oh, yeah. It's key for me. I honestly think parents and their kids are such an important audience for
Mhm.
this. We don't have a playbook to hand them. This is a different world.
Yeah.
I wrote it to be accessible. I wrote it to be easy. People aren't sitting down and reading big, heavy books right now. They don't want to.
Yeah.
They want to give them a fresh perspective, give them something to think about. It's super important to me that we don't allow another generation to move out into this world carrying with them yesterday's expectations.
Yeah.
They've
I
got to
love
be
that.
that. So I really hope this book will be a contribution to that.
Wow, that's such a beautiful way to end this. Thank you so much. I feel so honored to get the time with you. Thank you for doing that for me.
Oh, I'm so thrilled, Lauren. I mean, you're exactly the kind of person I love to have a conversation with because you're working with people through the transitions in their lives and how they're evolving and growing. So if this can be a part of that conversation, then I'm thrilled. So thank you for having me.
All right. Well, definitely like, subscribe, follow, share this with all of your friends. Make sure you grab Jillian's book, and we will see you next time. Bye, friends.